Now that you've got a basic understanding of the rigid body dynamics workflow, we can use a real scene to hone our skills a little bit. And this one is the classic catapult scene, which has been used for a long time in illustrating this technique. So we've got a file on the Digital Arts Guild website called catapultlodmodels.zip. So you should download that file and go ahead and put it into the scenes folder of your current project. Remember, at the beginning of the lessons, we created a project folder. Here it is in my current users, my documents, Maya projects. And there it is, Catapult project. And in this scenes folder, I've already placed that lodmodels.zip. I just need to uncompress it. There's lots of ways of uncompressing in Windows 7. In fact, I can just select it over here, and I'm now browsing inside the zip file. And I can just actually drag it into the scenes folder, and that actually uncompresses it. Go back up to the scene folder, and you'll see it there now. But anyway, you can just uncompress that file, and it's a 2011 version .ma or Maya ASCII file. If you're not using Maya 2011, then within Maya, you will need to go to the File menu and go into the Open Scene options and enable the Ignore Version switch. And that way you'll be able to read that file with no problems. Okay, so here we go. I'll go to Open. It takes me directly to my Catapult project scenes. There it is, Catapult LOD Models 2011. And Open. Now this is a sort of a classic, as I said, and what I've got here is a medieval catapult, and it's modeled to real-world scale at 1:1. So this 1,000 here, that indicates 1,000 centimeters. All right, so that's 10 meters. Cool. So it's going to shoot a projectile weapon all the way across here. You'll see that's quite a distance there. You know, this is 50 meters, so this is like 150 or 200 meters all the way out to here. So that's going to actually be a good demonstration of sort of the finickiness of the tools. That's about as far as you can probably expect to throw a projectile using dynamics. The tools are not that highly evolved. Here's the story. This part of the software is actually pretty old. I mean, it dates all the way back to the first version of Maya. And so you need to manage your expectations and know that performance is going to be limited. So in order to make sure that it will actually run, you almost always, with rigid body dynamics, have to create these levels of detail objects. Take a look at this. If I select this, this is in fact a low level of detail proxy object that will have a rigid body dynamic node applied to it. And then when I select that, you notice that it's called low LOD, low level of detail. And you'll also notice that this other object here, which is the high level of detail version, is highlighted in magenta. And that means it's under the influence of or dependent upon the selected object. What I've done here is I've parent constrained the high level of detail object to the low level of detail object. I can only really safely perform dynamics on something really simple and dumbed down to very few polygons. And this is only like 20 polygons for this whole object. So even something that looks, reasonable, it may not be reasonable for dynamics. You think that this is good enough, but no, in fact, this is way too much detail here for dynamics to work. So I'm going to calculate dynamics on this object, and then this one is the one that's going to actually render. You'll see that I've placed them on separate display layers here, and that's convenient because I can turn their visibility on and off. I can reference them to make them untouchable so I can't accidentally mess up my scene. So I can reference that, click that a couple of times, got the little R there. So the basic concept here is the high LOD layer is going to render, and the low LOD layer is going to calculate dynamics. By the way, I could have parented the high LOD to the low LOD with a direct link, but then that would kind of break my display layers over here. So I used a parent constraint instead. Okay, so that's the concept here is I've got a proxy object that's going to be just dumbed down as much as possible so it'll calculate quickly for dynamics. And then I've got a high level of detail object that I'll actually render. And by the way, one other point around this is just so that I don't accidentally forget to, hide my low LOD object. I don't want this to render, right? Just to make sure that it wouldn't actually get rendered, what I did was I went into the object's shape node attributes. So I'll select that and hit Control A to get my attribute editor up. Here's the mesh node, and under render stats, I've just disabled primary visibility. And that way it'll never render no matter what. Okay, so that's the basic setup and the concept around this. And now we're ready to actually start building our rigid bodies and adding gravity.